Welcome back to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast, powered by Healthy Steps Nutrition. At Healthy Steps Nutrition, our mission is to help 1 million people take control of their health one step at a time to prevent and reverse chronic disease. We believe that something as fundamental as nutrition shouldn't be complicated, which is why we focus on a simple, habit-based approach when working with clients. We know that helping you become the best and healthiest version of yourself isn't just about what you eat or going to the gym a few hours a week. We have to look at a holistic approach, addressing nutrition, stress management, mindset, sleep, support system, lifestyle, all of these factors that are influencing nutrition and health decisions. In order to become the best and healthiest version of yourself, you really need this holistic approach. My name is Nicole Coyne, and I am the founder of Healthy Steps Nutrition, home of CrossFit HSN and HSN Mentoring. I am so excited about today's podcast guest. Her name is Dr. Carla. She is a board-certified OBGYN and reproductive endocrinologist. She has over 20 years of experience and was named in Boston Magazine's Boston's Top Doctor from 2019 to 2024, all of those years. She is a wealth of knowledge, and she's transitioned to this concierge type of practice where she works with women, specifically premenopausal, menopausal, to help them understand a little bit more about their hormone health and help them become the healthiest versions of themselves. We work with a lot of her clients, and I absolutely have really enjoyed getting to know her, learning from her, and I'm super excited for you to learn from her in this episode. We'll get to this episode right after this message. One of the things that we talked about in this episode was CGM and using continuous glucose monitoring with clients that have been diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. CGM allows you to get a deeper understanding of what's going on the inside of your body, specifically if you're noticing that your fasting blood sugar is high or you're borderline diabetic but not yet diagnosed with diabetes. Maybe your A1C, 3-month average of your blood sugar, is going up and you want to figure out what is going on to take control of your health. Our blood sugar specialty program could be a really good option for you. This is where you get 30 days of CGM and you work directly with one of our registered dietitians on staff at Healthy Steps Nutrition to gain a deeper understanding and learn how to apply what the numbers mean to create an actionable plan to help you take control of your health. It's one of the programs that I'm super passionate about because I know how valuable it is to help prevent and reverse chronic disease, specifically around blood sugar irregulation issues like diabetes that leads to many other chronic diseases. So if you'd like more information, make sure you click the link in the show notes to apply for coaching and book a discovery call at Healthy Steps Nutrition. All right, let's get to this episode with Dr. Carla. In this episode, we talk about the importance of strength training, underfueling, PCOS, all things related to women who are trying to get a deeper understanding of what's going on in the inside of their body so that they can take control of their health. Enjoy. Dr. Carla, welcome to the Nutrition Made Simple podcast. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for having me. I'm excited about today too.
Oh, awesome. Well, gosh, we've got connected over the past few months, more recently through the Global Health Project. And we were talking, I was like, man, you got to come on the podcast. You're such a wealth of knowledge. For those of our listeners who haven't had an opportunity to listen to you yet, tell us a little bit about your background.
So I am a reproductive endocrinologist, and the way you become a reproductive endocrinologist is you train in OBGYN. So I'm board certified in both obstetrics and gynecology and reproductive endocrinology. And for many years, for about 18 years of my career, I was practicing as a fertility specialist at a big practice called Boston IVF up in New England. That's where I'm originally from. And I recently made a shift in my career because it was becoming so apparent to me what a need there is for women's health specialists in my field for active and athletic women. As women go through their lives, it seems that they're falling through the cracks in some ways because the doctors either don't understand menopause where they might be, or they're athletes and the doctors don't quite know how to deal with the athletic woman. So there was quite a niche to be had there. And so I decided to make a career shift, go out on my own and be a specialist consultant for clients who want some, medical care, their reproductive endocrine care through telehealth, which is easy to do for this field. And I also do a lot of consultation with other group practices for their females who need endocrine services. I'm also a Menopause Society certified practitioner as well. So I have some expertise in the older age groups.
Awesome. I know you're super passionate about all things hormone health and helping women really understand how to fuel their bodies. You also are a CrossFit trainer, which is actually how we originally got connected. I looked at the CrossFit Medical Society directory and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a doctor that's on this directory that's right near us. Let me connect with her. So you've been doing CrossFit, like you understand the importance of the lifestyle factors. What brought you to CrossFit?
So I've been a recreational level athlete my whole life, from the time I was a young child, up through high school. In college, I didn't do much with athletics except, do a lot of gym stuff because I was, in pre-med, and that's really difficult. I wasn't one of those super smart people who could, be a competitive athlete and go to medical school at the same time. But so I kind of took a break from there, but I've always played team sports. I've always been very much into fitness my entire life. And then when I was 45, I needed to level up. I was like, you know what? I've been doing group fitness. I was a Les Mills body combat instructor, body pump instructor, and that was really super fun. But I needed more because, I was midlife at that point and I was ready. So I found CrossFit. And that was so eye-opening for me. It was incredible. I loved it. I loved the variability and, getting surprised by a workout every day, and just the general physical preparedness that CrossFit trains was very, very appealing. And then about 2 or 3 years into it, I was recruited to do the CrossFit MD Level 1 training. The CEO, Greg Glassman, at the time was recruiting physicians who did CrossFit. And I had the opportunity to go to Aromas, California, where CrossFit began, and do my level 1 training there. And that had to be probably the single most inspirational thing I have ever done in my career. And that was a huge catalyst for me making this career shift. And then, it was just history from there. I've been doing CrossFit for about 9 years now. I'm a certified level 1 trainer. I don't actually coach classes, but that knowledge really helps in caring for athletic women.
Oh, that's awesome. Let's just start with strength training. So many doctors, you go into your general practitioner's office and they're talking about all these sorts of things. And they might mention exercise, but they're probably not talking about strength training. From a medical standpoint, when should you start doing strength training? Why is it important? And should you ever stop?
I think as early as possible. Myself, I started when I was 15 years old. That was back in 1985 when girls were not in the gym. But my father was a semi-pro football player. And so he knew the importance of physically smaller athletes being in the gym and making sure that they take advantage of their athletic potential by just, being as strong and fast as you possibly could. So I at least had that support from my father. But, a lot of women in my generation really aren't accustomed to strength training, because back then it was all aerobics and stuff. Fortunately, though, with the younger generations, there's been a real appreciation for collegiate teams to get women in the gym early, to start to build that base of muscle mass, because it really improves athletic performance. It's really super important. So building that base of muscular function, muscular mass, and power early in life is so, so important, because when you get to the later phases of life in perimenopause and menopause in your 40s and 50s, there's a decline in muscle mass as we age and with those hormonal changes. And that can lead to frailty. It can lead to injury. It can lead to, all kinds of declines in your independence. So if you can build that base early, then you will be set up for life. And with the habits as well, if you're used to strength training early on in your life, you'll be more likely to continue those habits later on. So as early as possible, pick up that barbell.
I love it. And so many people don't know, I remember going to college, cheering at University of Florida, and they sent us all to the strength conditioning like football coach. And that was the first time I went to a gym and I was like, oh, there's weights that you have to lift beyond just going on the Stairmaster and going on a treadmill and learning. I don't even know that I really learned the proper mechanics there, but it wasn't until CrossFit that I actually learned like, okay, what are the proper mechanics? How do you lift a barbell well? How do you deadlift well? And, keeping good form and really building muscle, because we know the research shows that we lose 3 to 8% of our muscle mass every decade. And as we age, it gets more and more. And if you are starting with a smaller base and as you age it, you're losing more muscle mass, you're going to, just as you said, have such increased risk for broken bones and other issues that come with lack of muscle, which is, we know, the organ of longevity. So strength training, important. Anything else you want to add about strength training and getting in the gym for women listening to this podcast episode?
Just that it's never too late. If you're in your 40s or 50s, you can still make gains in the gym. I just hit a PR 2 weeks ago for a front squat. And you can still make really good gains, even in your 50s. I coached a woman who was in her 60s, former collegiate basketball player, and she was able to literally transform her body in her 60s. So it's never too late to start. Those benefits are real no matter when. So don't be discouraged if you're 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus. There's still a benefit to be had there.
Women that say, I don't want to lift weights because I'm going to get bulky. What do you have to say about that?
I'll tell you, I'm trying to get bulky right now because of that muscle loss. A bulk is beautiful to me because when you get to this point, it's really hard to maintain that muscle mass. So I'm shooting for the bulk at this point. And I don't know, to me, I think muscles are beautiful. I mean, we're beyond 1985 and 1995. I think, if it's an aesthetic thing, some of the most beautiful women in the world are CrossFit athletes and muscular women. So it's consistent with good health, and your healthiest self is your most beautiful self.
I love that. What you're visioning, like someone that's a bodybuilding contest, is not what happens by doing strength training. So, start doing it and see how you feel and see the power that you have and the increased confidence by learning to lift weights well. One of the things that people struggle with who want to lose weight and start exercising is underfueling. You've actually referred some clients to us over, the past few months of people who are underfueling their bodies and not eating enough. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's an onion with many layers for sure, because a lot of the underfueling that I see in my clients is related to disordered eating, body image issues, and just what we were taught culturally of what we should eat. I mean, there's something about the 1,200 calories a day that is still persistent even today. I mean, I've had marathon competitors coming to me saying, I can't lose this jiggle from my midsection. And oh, by the way, I'm training for the Boston Marathon on 1,200 calories. Well, it's because your body is hanging on for dear life for fuel because you're not getting enough. That's not nearly enough. But there is still this sentiment out there, and it's still in, I don't know if it's a curriculum or what it is, but there is still nutritionists out there who are trying to achieve these incredible caloric deficits in these athletic women. And these women come to me frustrated that it's not working. And so, there's a lot to unpack with just what we know about fueling women, which I think, with a lot of the work of Dr. Stacy Sims, we've learned a lot more about fueling women because historically, all we went on was the studies on men. And, what works for men doesn't work for women. We're very, very different. And also the body image issues and disordered eating histories. So it's a lot to unpack, and that's why an individualized approach to each client to understand their barriers and their needs is really important.
Absolutely. And just an initial assessment, figure out, all right, where are we at right now? I've seen so many people not get enough protein. When we talk about strength training, you have to prioritize protein to be able to build the lean muscle mass. And when we talk about underfueling, it might not just be the calorie deficit. It's probably the fact that they're not getting enough protein to be able to build the muscle that they're working really hard for in the gym. So if you're finding yourself, I talk to people all the time. I've been going to the gym. Was just talking to a guy who lives actually where he used to be. He's in the Boston area. Been going to the gym for the past 6 months. I'm not seeing any results. I'm like, okay, well, the gym by itself is not going to help you change your body composition. We have to look at the other factors. We have to look at nutrition. We have to look at sleep and all these other factors that are influencing your nutrition and health decisions. Anything else that you want to talk about in regards to, let's talk about this, underfueling, not getting enough calories, and the impact on hormone health?
That is a great topic, and it's a fun one for me because I'm a hormone geek. That's why I became an endocrinologist. But what's really interesting about being an endocrinologist and a women's health specialist is that you come to understand how evolution programmed us. And it's really fascinating because, the two biggest driving forces are our survival and procreation, right? And what's interesting is the way women are designed is that we are very sensitive to fueling balance. So when we see in puberty, we know that if you're an athlete and your body fat mass is very, very, very low, and you won't get your period. You hear about the gymnasts, the competitive gymnasts. They're in their younger ages. They're going through puberty late because they're just not in a fueling balance. So the body detects, okay, there's not enough fuel in the environment. It would not be a good idea for a baby to come along because that's what menstruation is for, right? Menstruation is to create a baby, the potential. And so Mother Nature has this clever way of saying, okay, if the conditions aren't right in the environment, then I'm going to shut off the menstrual cycle. And this isn't happening right now because that's not going to promote survival. So we know that fueling balance is incredibly important for the initiation of menses. And then during reproductive life, we always hear about women losing their periods. They're training for a marathon, they're training for a high rocks event or what have you, and they lose their periods. Again, there's a fueling imbalance. Mother Nature is like, no, we can't have periods going on with the potential to conceive when there's not enough fuel in the environment. So we are exquisitely sensitive to this as females, and we just don't see the same sensitivity in the male population because they're not the ones carrying the pregnancy, they don't have a menstrual cycle, et cetera. So that sensitivity becomes front and center as an endocrinologist because what's happening is that fuel balance is targeting the endocrine system that drives reproduction and also the stress response. So enter in the stress response. So when the body is underfueled, it perceives it as a stress or a threat. And so when that happens, the stress response endocrine or hormonal pathways talk directly to the reproductive system. So again, the stress response system, that responds to, okay, there's a bear in the woods that's ready to eat me. Not a good time to be having a baby. So again, Mother Nature kind of programs stress and fuel as two big things to reflect physiologic balance that says the coast is clear for being able to procreate and have a child. So understanding that innate wiring that we have as females really carries over into a lot of the hormonal things that I see going wrong in reproductive age women and also in menopausal women as well, who no longer have their menstrual cycle, but that stress response system is getting really activated by that underfueling. And then that creates inflammation and stagnation in performance.
Awesome. So, using your menstrual cycle as a great health check, am I fueling or am I not, would be, an easy first step that you can self-regulate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think every woman should be in tune to her menstrual cycle. So if you're of reproductive age, this doesn't mean that you have to get every fancy app that tracks ovulation to the day and keep track of every single day bleeding. You don't have to obsess about it. Really, it's just get a calendar. Okay, today I got my period. And then next month, okay, what day did I get my period? And if you just track the regularity of it, that gives you an incredible amount of information because what if the next month's usually I get it on the second or the third of the month. but it didn't come till the 14th this time. All right, well, let's just keep an eye on this. And then if you start to see a change, it's like something's changing. And then you see your doctor or your coach, your trainer, and say, hey, something's changing here. What is it? And it really is a great vital sign. I like to call it the fifth vital sign for assessing physiologic balance.
I love that. Okay. Easy, actionable thing that our listeners can do. Let's talk a little bit about PCOS. What is PCOS?
Oh, this is a great topic. Great segue, too, since we're talking about menstrual cycles and regularity. So PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it's a hormonal imbalance where essentially there is too much male hormone being produced in a woman's body that creates some like static interference where the hormonal communication between your pituitary gland and your ovaries, which is what normally happens for your menstrual cycle to happen regularly, those increased male hormones create interference with those signals, and periods become irregular or even absent. So how does this happen? And this is a big subject of debate, the chicken or the egg question. Sometimes we actually do see PCOS much more commonly in obese individuals. So did this hormonal imbalance create the obesity, or did the obesity create the hormonal imbalance? And I think that we still don't have an answer to that. We do know that if people can manage weight loss, that their PCOS symptoms can be improved. But still, it's not clear exactly, what causes what, because there's also maybe 15% of PCOS patients who are lean, who do not struggle with obesity, but they do struggle with these elevated levels of male hormones that are interfering with their cycles. So that is, in a nutshell, what PCOS is. It does exist along a huge spectrum. So it's not black or white. You can have, a soft call. That's what I like to call it, a soft call PCOS. It's like, okay, you have irregular periods and maybe your ultrasound of your ovaries shows some follicles, but that's it. You don't have any other symptoms. And then you have other people who have so much hair growth that they actually have to shave their face. They have laboratory evidence of elevated testosterone and adrenal hormones. They have insulin resistance, and they have the full gamut. So PCOS exists along that spectrum, but it is in general due to an imbalance of male to female hormones.
How would people be diagnosed with PCOS?
So the most commonly used diagnostic criteria for PCOS is called the Rotterdam criteria. And you have to have 2 out of 3 of the following. One is irregular menstrual cycles. That's when you have about 3 months worth of periods that are not coming monthly, or absent periods for 3 months. So irregular periods is one. Laboratory or clinical evidence of elevated male hormones. That means if you draw a blood test for testosterone or adrenal hormones like DHEAS, if those are elevated, that serves the criteria. Or if you have clinical hair growth on your face, on your chest, your buttocks, and it's usually coarse, dark hair in the midline of the body. So either one of those would meet that criteria. And then the third thing are ovarian ultrasound findings. So when you do an ultrasound of the ovaries have this pattern of follicles. Those are the little sacs of fluid that contain the eggs in your ovaries, and they tend to be clustered around the periphery of the ovary. On an ultrasound, it looks like the string of pearls. It's called the string of pearls sign. So 2 out of 3 of those will land you the diagnosis of PCOS. There are other signs too. Insulin resistance is not a diagnostic criteria of PCOS, but it is commonly seen when you check hormones like follicle stimulating hormone and LH hormone. Certain ratios that tend to be seen, but not technically diagnostic criteria. So there are other signs too, but the Rotterdam is really what most clinicians use as the diagnostic tool.
If someone is diagnosed with PCOS, what are some of the things that you would typically work with them on?
Well, first, are they a lean PCOS or are they an obese PCOS? So for women who are obese, weight loss and nutritional consultation is very important because these women tend to have a predisposition toward insulin resistance and glucose intolerance, because there's some crossover between insulin growth factor type pathways and the reproductive hormone axis, and there seems to be some aberrations there. So I usually like to have them work with a nutritionist who has experience with PCOS so they can focus on low glycemic index foods. Maybe they wear a CGM or a continuous glucose monitor to see just how their body reacts to certain things that they eat. So that's really important. Inositol is also a supplement that many people with PCOS use, and that can give some relief to some of the hair growth and some of the symptoms that women experience with PCOS. It's particularly good if women are trying to get pregnant. We put almost everybody on inositol when they're trying to conceive. And also exercise, because glucose intolerance goes along with that, this predisposition. If you are moving your muscles and regularly exercising, that's also going to help with glucose control. So it's a multifaceted approach of, fitness, medical care, depending on their goals, and fertility consultation, things like that, and exercise, nutrition is huge.
I love that you stress the lifestyle factors so much, and it's not as common when you talk to physicians to really directly guide you to like, hey, you really need to dial in your nutrition. Even just mentioning the CGM. I know we've had off the podcast conversations about the CGM, and it's so empowered when people realize what's going on the inside of their body. And typically CGMs were only used for people that have diabetes. And now they're becoming more accessible for people who aren't technically diagnosed with diabetes, but to help them understand what's going on to maybe detect the insulin glucose intolerance sooner so that we can take control of it, understand what's going on, make some dietary modifications, and really take control of our health. Also, the strength training and helping people get active, even just going for a 15-minute walk after meals helps with your body being able to digest the food and with being able to regulate your glucose. So those would be some simple tips that people with PCOS or just in general would be a good option. Anything else you want to add with clients, patients that you've worked with that have PCOS?
I think, as you underscored the lifestyle factors, they are important for disease prevention, because people with polycystic ovarian syndrome also have an increased risk of something called metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a constellation of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. And so the best way to prevent that is with nutritional support and regular exercise. So that becomes particularly important for PCOS, even of the lean subtypes, to be active in exercise and manage their nutrition to prevent those predispositions down the road.
I love that. Anything else that you want to add? And we definitely need to let our listeners know where they can find you, and we can add some links in the show notes as well.
I have a blog that on PCOS, and it's in my Performance Edge blog. It's on Substack. It's Performance Edge, all one word, .blog, and I have a pretty thorough PCOS post there. So if your listeners want to check that out and learn a little bit more, they can check it out at performanceedge.blog. Where people can find me, my website is the best place, most up-to-date place to see what I do. It's www.drcarlad.com. And I'm also on Instagram at dr_Carla_D. And I'm on Facebook. You just search me by name and I will pop up.
Awesome. How do you work with patients? Let's say I was interested in working with you. How does it work when people work with you?
So the website's the best place to go. There is a contact button where people can just send me an email. That email comes directly to me. I manage all the emails that come into my practice, and that's the best way to contact me is through my website.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time today. You're such a wealth of knowledge. We will definitely have you back. Appreciate all that you do and really bringing to light all of the different factors that are influencing women's health, and not just the medical care, but really tying in the lifestyle interventions to help improve patient outcomes. So thank you for all that you do and really leading the way.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to reach your listeners.
I hope you enjoyed that episode with Dr. Carla. 3 things that stood out to me. The first one is it is never too late to start strength training. We know that as we age, our muscle is diminishing. We lose about 3 to 8% of our muscle mass every decade as we age after the age of 30. So if you're not 30 yet, make sure that you're getting into the gym to build that solid foundation of strength. And if you are over 30, still getting into the gym to combat the muscle that we are naturally losing is really important. It is never too late to start strength training or get back into the routine. If you are local to South Florida in Deerfield Beach, we'd love you to join our gym. We prioritize strength training and getting a community of people together who are all prioritizing their health. You can go to CrossFitHSN.com to learn more about our gym. The next thing we talked about was the issue of underfueling. I see this so many times with clients that we're working with who have been put on GLP-1s, a known appetite suppressant. They're not getting enough fuel, which is causing them to lose weight, lose muscle really rapidly, which is not good. Yes, the number might be going down on the scale, but body composition is also changing in not a good way. And when they get off the medication, their basal metabolic rate is going to be lower. So make sure that you're fueling your body properly to maintain the muscle that you are working really hard for. The last thing that we talked about was PCOS and some things that people that think they might have PCOS, some diagnostic criteria, but then what would you do? Focusing a lot on those lifestyle factors, strength training and exercise, dialing in your nutrition. I love that she mentioned CGM, continuous glucose monitoring. I think it is a really good way for people to gain a deeper insight and understanding on what's going on in the inside of your body. Because realistically, most people don't get that knowledge until they have that diabetes diagnosis. Well, through our blood sugar balance program, you can gain a deeper understanding of what's going on the inside of your body. With this program, you are working with one of our registered dietitians directly, where you have calls every single week to review what your blood sugar has done, make some tweaks so that you can ultimately take control of your health. Lots of information in this episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. Remember, if you are looking for a nutrition coach, you can go to healthystepsnutrition.com to hire a Healthy Steps nutrition coach near you or to work with us directly at our HQ location. Hope you enjoyed this podcast episode, and we'll see you back here soon.